Hello everyone, my name is Roz Majid. Me and my friend Sofia will talk about the diversity of education between Iraq and Mexico. First, Sofia will talk about a brief description of Mexico.
Well, Mexico actually is a country that is located in the southern part of North America, and it's bordered by the US in the north and Belize and Guatemala to the south. It actually has a very rich cultural heritage with a history that spans like thousands of years and includes ancient civilizations such as the Maya and Aztec. And Mexico is also very known for its delicious cuisine, colorful traditions, and stunning natural beauty, among another stuff.
And talking about Iraq, it's located in the Middle East. It borders six countries, such as Turkey, Iran, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Syria. So the Iraq itself, the word is derived from an Arabic language. It means the fertile, and Iraq's capital city is called Baghdad. And talking about the population, it consists of 45 million people, and among these, it consists of several distinct groups. Talking about the foremost ones, they're the Arabs. Arabs consist of three-fourth percentage of the population. Second most comes the Kurds. They consist of one-fourth of the population, and then after them comes the several small ethnic groups such as Chaldeans, Assyrians, Turks, Yazidis, Jewish, and like so many other people. Not to mention about the language, the main languages are first the Arabic language and then comes the Kurdish. But the most important one is Arabic. And as you can see here below the picture, to the left is the Erbil citadel that is located in Erbil, center of Erbil. It is very old. It goes back to like 6,000 years. It's very famous. It's also very nice for tourists to seek through and learn more about, how, like the past and like the civilization, how it used to be here. And not to mention, Iraq is very, very famous with oil as it exports oil to abroad countries. And next.
Now we are going to explain these sub teams um, and make like a comparison between our countries. And we are going to start with the student support services. I will say that here in Mexico, we have some examples about the student support services that we have. We have like tutoring, advising, counseling, some career services, health services, and also we have like the scholarship system in our university. But also it can vary between one university to another.
And talking about my university, we do also have tutoring, but then we don't have scholarships. It's not given. It may be given to like other universities, especially the private ones. It's more like more acceptable, I'd say. But for my university, they don't provide that. And also, one of other services is this program that we're having. We also had other program for like another different department, accounting department, which the students had to like go for months for to Germany to like study a whole semester there, and that's also like one of the services they had for students. We also had programs where students could go for a cultural exchange program in Poland, and that was for 2 weeks. We also had ones for Malaysia and like so on. So I'd say these trips would be really informative for like students.
Another subject that we have here is the teaching methods used. Here in Mexico, we were seeing that it varies very much depending on the level of education that you are in and the subject that you're being taught. But however, the general teaching methods that we have is like more like memorizing key concepts, more traditional based and focused on like lecture style, like memorizing stuff like that.
I'd say for us here, the curriculum itself is in English. Like the PowerPoints given to us, the books given to us are all in English. But then when it comes to like the teachers teaching themselves, it's in a different language, which is really not acceptable, but it's done like that. We do have some teachers that do teach in English, but the majority would not teach in English. So yeah, that's and talking about the method itself, as Sophia said, it like varies from like teacher to another. So each one has a specific, unique style of theirs.
Actually, it's very interesting because here in Mexico, on the schools that have like that possibility of being more like bilingual, they're like the private schools. So in a public school, you will never have like that opportunity to have the your like material taught in another language. So that I think that it's very interesting from your culture. But let's go to the next subject that is higher education. Here in Mexico is like provided by the universities, both public and private. And I think that percentage of like your admission test in a private college is like not as important in a public as in a public university. And I think that it's basically because of the prestige of the public. I'm sorry, of, yes, of the public universities. So it really depends on that, but you have to get like a higher score if you're getting into a private university
Yeah.
because of the same reason. Mhm.
Mhm. So how it's done here, we have private and public universities. The private ones, obviously, you'll have to pay. Public ones, you don't pay unless if, let's say my department is information system engineering. They accept, let's say for instance, they accept an average of 90 out of 100, 90 and above. But then let's say a student like me, talking from my experience, my average was 86. It's acceptable for me to join unless if I pay. And this system is called parallel system. So it's like basically paying to get accepted into a public university. And public universities here are more valued than uh, the private ones. They both are like they both have their own necessities. But then I think if you had to choose between public and private universities, it's always better to choose the public one.
I think we have that in common because here, as I was saying, the public universities are way more respected. And in private, as you were saying, it's something sort of similar, but here in private, you have to pay
Yeah,
to get in. And you can pay for your admission test, and your score doesn't really matter. It's something
exactly.
very interesting to compare. In another subject, we have the school infrastructure. In Mexico, it actually varies widely because it depends really on the location and the type of school that you're in. And there are more rural schools or areas that has lack of infrastructure and like other facilities. And in urban areas or private schools, they have like a better infrastructure.
Mhm.
But it really depends a lot on the place that you are in the country.
I do agree with you, especially now that I'm in public university. The government does pay, but then it's different when you it's different compared to private ones, because like you have the government and like the income of like the students themselves. So I'd
Mhm.
say concerning the infrastructure, we might not be as like developed as the private universities, but then they do their job. We do study, we do get informative things and lectures. So in that case, I'd say as long as you're improving from one side, that really wouldn't matter as much.
Yes, I think it's quite similar. But yes, they do their job, as you were saying.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
pro- Another subject that we have here is the educational resources. Here in Mexico, the educational resources are mainly provided by the government, and some of them are from private organizations. But basically, most of all, the government is responsible for providing um, all of the students significant resources on the education system. And there's this difference between the private again and the public, because the private gets sponsors, and you're paying for a fee to get your material and all of the quality of the teachers and stuff like that.
I'd say it's the exact same here, obviously, because it's public. Again, the government itself would be paying for the resources. The resources might not be like like not any student would get access to all of these resources because of the limits that's showing. Uh, in that case, the student himself or herself have to buy the resource themselves, whether it's technical or a PC or anything in that case.
That is
And
interesting. Here, actually, it's very complicated to speak about education because there's this wide world of what education means in each country, and I think that the possibilities that have the poorest people here in Mexico can vary a lot in their resources as well. So
also,
it's
yeah,
interesting.
talking about this point, I remember we had a class, it's called Internet of Things. We had to create a project. It was like a practical lesson. So we had to have these kind of technical things such as wires and pins and lights and everything. So the university did provide it for us, but then we had the limit of time for it to be used. And whenever we finish the project, we have to give it back at a specific time. And if anything is missing, you have to buy it yourself and fill the whatever is missing. So in that case, there's also responsibilities.
Wow, that is very interesting. A good comparison point between our
Yeah.
countries, really.
And next slide, we are going to talk about Hofstede's insights between Iraq and Mexico. Hofstede's insight is, as I was taught by Professor Ada, we thought of why not use it and compare between Iraq and Mexico. What it basically shows is 6 dimensions to show the difference, or actually the similarities as it's showing, between the countries that you've chosen. So we chose Iraq and Mexico. We'll be talking about specifically power distance, masculinity, and about indulgence, because difference between the two are more than the others. So talking about power distance is basically about so how it works here, which is so true. I'd say 97 is not even 97. I'd say it would be more than that, because here, the people here, let's say you'd want to get employed to a company that is hard to be employed in. You have to have the specific person there, a wealthy person, or a person that has power for you to get to be employed there. So I'd say most of the people actually being employed here do have such access to such organizations or companies and things.
I think the experience is very similar here because in Mexico the hierarchical order is like very defined and it's positioned like very remarkable and uh, you also have especially in the government facilities you have to be like very well known or have to be with very good public relations to get in and to work there. So that I think that it's mainly how the world works because it's something that actually you can say that happens in a lot of countries because of the like it's the same is the hierarchical order.
So you know
So I
how
think
it's
that
yeah, how it's done here is like, let's say you send your CV, and let's say the HR team got like 10 CVs. Okay, the person who has the power, let's say I have a person in that company that I know, and I requested him to be accepted to be employed in that company. uh, Out of the 6 or the 10 CVs that the HR team looks at, if they see my name, I would be directly accepted in that place. This is basically how it works here. So I may have like little experience in that field, and someone else could have the best experience, or at least better experience than me. He or she wouldn't get accepted, but then I would because of the power that I have, or the power the person that's employing me would have. And yeah.
yes, here it's something similar. In very few times you get like a position because of your skills and not in everything, but it can happen.
Talking about the second point, which is the masculinity, where basically a guy should act as a guy to be rough, and a girl is supposed to act as a girl, as if she's tender or like if she's soft. I'd say from a point, this is so true because they would literally judge a girl if she would be doing a guy's job, or they would judge a guy if he would be washing dishes and everything. So I'd say this is true, but then I think we're also trying to improve from that point. Uh, I think that's needed, to improve, like from the negative to the positive.
Here we have something similar because we have like very defined roles between our society, and I think that there's like this lack of diversity in gender that creates like some environments in the country that um, interferes with the style of let's say leadership in our country. So that it's something very similar, and it works or it shows how or why the Mexican society works like in that way. So I think it's very resemblant to your experience in a way.
I'd also like to talk about from my experience, since I go to the gym and I bodybuild. I had a lot of people telling me that, girls are not supposed to work out. It's always for the boys, as if the gym is always built for boys. And I do disagree, of course. But again, as I've been noticing, the girls in our gym, you could say they equalize the number of the boys in the gym. So that means from one point, we're trying to build ourselves from that case. And I'd say it's like a step to improve. So, like, don't let anyone tell you what is for you and what is not. Talking about the last point, which is indulgence, for Iraq, it's 23, which is so much different from Mexico. And I'd like to explain that. So, let's say if one person wouldn't forgive one another, I think there's this thing where, let's say, I would forgive you, but then I'd leave a very like long distance between like you. So I wouldn't interact with you in that case. But have I forgiven you? Yes, I have. but I would not interact with you at like any kind of way. That's basically how it's here, or at least for me.
I think that here in Mexico, we have like this tendency to be more optimistic, and we do tend to be more forgiving with other people, despite that they, whatever they have done. But I think that it's because of the time we can share among each other, and that's why we tend to forgive more. But I agree with you that it depends on each person's experience. So it can
Exactly.
vary. Mhm.
I do agree. To conclude, I hope this presentation was informative enough for you to know at least some of the differences between Iraq and Mexico and how everything works concerning educational wise. And I'd like to thank anyone who's watching up to now. And Sophia, if you want to say anything.
Me, I hope that these presentations have worked for you and help us understand that we as countries are more alike than we think, and that we have a lot in common. But to me, it's also interesting to hear like the differences between us and understand each other better. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed our presentation and see you later.
Bye.